My next interview is with Merle Haggard. Merle Haggard, the year 1987. And we start as I ask Merle about his preparation for a stage show on the road. This is what Merle had to say.
If everything's, if my health's all right, and if I got the time, I like to do sound checks. I like to participate in everything I can to make it better. And I usually get up around noon and try to play the guitar a little bit, an hour or so a day. And if I've got a new song or something, maybe run over it. And talk as little as possible.
So you'll have more voice to sing with?
You know, as you get older, you're not able to do anything as long as you used to, and singing is one of those things that I can do probably as well as I ever could, but I can't do it as long. And if there's a really necessary gig coming up that I sing very well, I try to not talk too much, and when I talk, try to talk low, and not knock the edge off of it, you know.
Do you dress on the bus?
Yeah. I just go into the motel anymore and make a phone call and take a shower and get out of there. You know, I've seen all those Holiday Inns I need to see.
Oh, you mean you don't even sleep there?
Not very much. I just as soon sleep on the bus. I have all my things there, and rather than carry them in and out like Fuzzy does, Fuzzy will load up, look like he's moving every day. He does just the opposite. I said, Fuzzy, why do you carry everything upstairs? He said, well, I may need something.
Now, after the sound check is over, there's a lapse there. There's some time you've got to kill waiting to go on. Do you get nervous?
Just on the first job out, it's like this last trip, I had been off a terribly long time for a player to be idle. It had been the best part of 2 months, and I hadn't even looked at a guitar in a couple, 3 weeks, and just kind of got away from it all. And then all of a sudden, here, this tour was on top of me, you know, and all those words that I haven't used in so long, all those songs and everything, you know, they sometimes run together, and I find myself on stage afraid to call a certain song for fear that I may have forgotten a piece of it. And we have done an ad-lib show, which is, I think, known by most people for a long time, but after the first show is over, I usually don't experience stage fright. The same thing that keeps the other guys from getting nervous is probably what works for me. I don't have to sit there and sweat some particular part of the show. If I go out there and I feel like doing something new, if things are going along and they're happening well, then it's easy to pull out a new song because you've already got this good time behind you. In other words, the show's been good, you know what I mean, and doing your show every night, when you get 40 minutes behind you that's good, then maybe you can venture out and do something creative, you know, and if it messes up, you still got a good score, you know.
All right, now you're on stage, and the band, you've had the same band for a long time. They know you pretty well.
Yeah.
But if you switch gears on them in the middle of the show and decide you'll do a new tune, can they switch gears with you? Do they?
About as good as you ever seen.
I mean, I assume at some point you have discussed this new song with them.
There's been times when I've walked out on the stage and felt that the song was basic enough that I could pull it off without any prior notice and just turn around and say, this thing is in G, and when in doubt, go back to G. And it goes like...
You give them a tempo.
And turn around and sing it, you know. And
Does that work?
It works surprisingly well because of the fact that the people accept it as a new song, and they seem to enjoy and feel or sense the fact that there has been no prior rehearsal, and And they excused whatever mistakes were made because they got to hear something that was new, and they like it. They seem to like it very well.
Have you ever tried to tell jokes in your act?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I learned early in my career that I wasn't a comedian. I can make people laugh, but you have to be able to assess your audience, and a large audience is very hard to talk to. It's very hard to get all those people to listen. So a joke is just really like a guy like Don Bowman in front of 18,000 people is dead before he walks on.
Yeah, past the 6th or 8th row, they're not listening for jokes. They're listening for music.
Right on. And Wills had a saying, there was a new bass player in the band who hadn't spoken to Bob, and Bob hadn't spoken to him, and he'd been around 3 or 4 days, and the guy tried to strike up a conversation, and Wills had 2 fiddle players on the band. One was Louis Turney, one was Joe Holly. Well, Joe Holly did a great act when he played, something like Mac McGahey used to do. He did a lot of jumping around this and that. And this new bass player said, said old Joe Holly really puts on a show for those folks. That he has his own little circle of people and fans right there in front of him. He said, it really knocks me out. Bob said, yeah. He said, I like Joe's playing. He said, but I like Louis Turney a whole bunch better. Said he played for that guy way back in the back. There's a lot to be thought about there, isn't there?
I would imagine, Merle, that most people come to hear you to hear your music.
Yeah, I figured that out when we had a lot of talks about what can make you hot, what counts in this business, and I think it all comes right back down to what's in the groove. It's not, it's either there or it isn't there. And when you go to a concert, they want to hear something that's either good enough to put in the groove or has been in the groove. And they really don't care about what you did that day, I don't think. As far as trying to tell them, and you've seen the artist that walks out and could have been maybe a great star and just talk himself right into the oblivion, or there's been 2 or 3 that come to mind that I've admired over the years, that really had the talent to sing and do well and just talk themselves right out of a career.
Well, I remember being in Bakersfield with you when your mother died.
Yeah.
And you took me around the city, and we went to the boxcar where you were born.
Right.
Which seemed to me was about a half a block from the tracks that time.
Just about a half a block from the first train I ever hopped.
What was your daddy's name?
Jim Francis Haggard. James Francis.
Was he a musician?
Yeah, Dad was a musician. He played all string instruments and sang bass in a church quartet. And according to my mother and other family members, was a good musician, had a good voice, and could sing like Jimmy Rogers. And they say that Mama's told me that when she was carrying me in pregnancy, that she prayed that I might have the talent that he had and be able to use it. And I think in the book she said something like, you know not what you pray for. Be careful.
I mean, because the Lord might answer your prayer.
Exactly.
I always thought Flossie was very supportive of your career.
She really was. I think more so than she would have been had she not felt that way about her husband, and felt like maybe that life and children and all the things that get in the way of doing what you want to do had stopped him from maybe having a career. And she was sincere about that. She felt that he really had a chance.
Were your parents part of the Grapes of Wrath movement of the Okies out to Bakersfield, to California, looking for...
Yes, they were. They were actually the Henry Fonda, the people that was happening at the time they filmed this movie, and the movie was fairly accurate from all I can gather. they were in the midst of that. Not exactly for the same reason. Dad wasn't broke. He was making it, which I'm proud to say, during the time that the Depression was at its height. But he got burned out back there, and he lost all of his tools and all of his animals, and I think he lost a 31 Ford in the fire, which was 34. So if he had a 31 Ford, he was doing pretty good for a country boy. And all he did was he farmed 20 acres, a sharecropping situation, and had a trap line that ran 25 miles. And he was the kind of guy that he didn't know there was a depression going on, because it was always hard, you know. And,
Merle, how old were you when he died?
9.
Did that have a major effect, profound effect on your life?
I think about it every day. I'm sure it did. I have missed my father many times. Many times I would have liked to have been able to walk up and ask him something.
Or had him live long enough to see what you became.
Yeah.
What was his death the reason that you ran away from home so early in life?
It was part of it. It was real lonely at home in those days. There was no television, and there wasn't anything except a radio.
How about brothers and sisters?
They were both gone. They were 14 and 16 years older than myself, and so it was just me and Mom. And it was, I've never been one that could be by myself very well. I didn't always like to be around somebody. And I guess that, more than anything, was what caused me to run early. I left when I was like 11. First time, didn't get too far, but I tried. And there was something in there there was a feeling about being a burden to her, and there was a feeling of needing to find a niche that didn't seem to be there, you know. And I guess it was, I'm sure the loss of my father was because we spent the time together in the evenings and things that he liked me and I liked him, and you know, there was a rapport that we had.
You were the baby, weren't you?
Yeah. And
did you go fishing with him?
Yeah, we went fishing. He took me fishing, and we just spent a lot of time out in the front lawn. I remember we had a little terrier dog, kind of like that one I have now, and it was a full-size dog. And Dad worked late. They worked 10 hours a day then, and he wouldn't smoke in the house. Ever since I was born, Mama wouldn't let him smoke in the house. And funny, I've smoked Camel since I was 9, but I never smelled any tobacco in the house. But it was a big event to go out and sit on the front porch with Dad after supper, and he had his cigarette out there, you know. And just very simple things that you miss.
Your mother was a very religious woman, wasn't she?
To say the least.
Did that cause a conflict? Did she insist that you go to church? Did you rebel?
Yeah, to both questions. I had to go to church and to Sunday school because there was nobody to watch over me in the first 4 or 5 years, 6 years of my life, probably. And but I found out that all kids didn't go to both deals, you know. Some kids went to Sunday school and then they got to go home, you know, or they didn't go to Sunday school and they got to go to church. And as soon as I found out that some of the kids didn't have to do this, well, there was a rebellion, and you know, it happened every Sunday morning. And it wound up the same way. And me still going to Sunday school and church, you know, but and usually the church that Sunday evening, and a lot of times church on Wednesday nights, you know. So by the time that I was very young, I knew John 3:16 very well, and had won a lot of them little gold stars, and I don't regret that now that I'm older. But at the time, I didn't like it a bit.
And I know your mother meant a lot to you.
Oh, yeah.
The Mama That Tried. There's a line in Mama Tried, I was 21 in prison living life without parole. Is that true?
Not exactly. It's, I turned 21 in prison.
Yeah.
Doing life without parole. I was turned 21 in prison doing 6 months to 15 years. But it just I couldn't get it to work in the song.
Can't sing that. Why do you think, Merle, you got in a lot of trouble as a teenager, didn't you?
I think I got in trouble on purpose. I think that was the unconsciously I felt the need to experience these things that I'd heard sung about in Jimmie Rodgers' songs, and I think, truthfully, more I think about it, that I was trying to live out some of those things and see if they were any merit to their existence. If I wanted to be a Clyde Barrow and get me a Bonnie Parker and do that the rest of my life, or did I want to play music? And
you mean you actually thought it might be fun to be a professional criminal?
Jesse James was my idol.
What was the first kind of trouble you ever got into with the law?
Trying to get away from somewhere. I think I decided to go to Missouri, I think was our destination, and we had borrowed one of the guy's dad's cars, and it broke down on us in the desert, and that was 1949 or 50, I think, and it was very easy to take a car there at the Barstow Railroad Station because there was a lot of men worked there, and we knew that we could have that car for several hours before it'd be turned in, and that was the first time I ever got into something serious. We stole a 49 Chevy and drove it to Kingman, which was only less than 100 miles, I think, before they caught us, and we spent almost 60 days in jail there, not in juvenile, but in jail.
How old were you?
13, I think.
Who was us?
And me and Bobby Cox, who is dead now. Bobby was my grammar school buddy all through the years. He died of cancer a couple of years ago. Him and I smoked our first Camel together, by the way. He died of throat cancer. But it was Bobby and a kid named Jimmy Simpson and a kid named D.D. Warren, Donald Warren. And Jimmy Simpson is living somewhere in Bakersfield. I think he's an electrician or something. And D.D. Warren is in federal prison, and Bobby's dead. And I'm sitting there with you.
Can you recount for me the instant where you guys, you and somebody, tried to break into this place that wasn't locked?
Yeah, we had ribbed ourselves into believing that there was some justification in robbing somebody because of the fact that there wasn't enough employment to go around. That was the rib that we had managed to make ourselves believe. And with the help of 2 or 3 fifths of wine, well, we had decided that we should go out and knock over this cafe. I don't know why we wanted to hit this cafe, but we went out to this cafe and we had a crowbar and was in the process of tearing that door off, and the guy came to the back door and opened the rest of it and said, "Why don't you guys go around the front? It'd be easier."
Did you think the place was closed?
Yeah, we thought it was closed.
It was open.
Looked at our watch.
Huh?
We hadn't bothered to look at. We didn't check time or anything. We just went on down there and did it. And it was only like 10:30. I guess we thought it was later than it was. It was darker probably in our minds. The wine had our clocks all off, and that's what happened. Was when he done that, it scared us so bad. We jumped back in the car and peeled out with our lights out, and a highway patrolman saw us coming out of the parking lot with our lights out and pulled us over, and that was the bus that carried me to Quentin.
Were you sent up for being an habitual criminal?
Yeah.
How much trouble did
20
you...
years old. I'd got in a lot of it. All the same type of thing. All just cars.
Breaking and entering?
No.
Stealing?
That wasn't even... That didn't happen until I was right at the last. It was always truancy and going to some institution. I escaped 17 times in a period of about 4 years. And those escapes, I stole cars and getting away. And then when I was about 18, I actually made an effort to become a professional. And I got in with some guys that were safecrackers. And I intended to do it right. And it didn't last very long until I pulled one of those juvenile stunts that we just explained. And so they sent me away as an habitual criminal. But I think it's the only place in history that I can find in any recording where a man is sent away as an habitual criminal or a criminal of any kind, and then voted Man of the Year by the same community. That's incredible, I think, even if it did happen to me.
Are you talking about the community of Bakersfield?
Yeah.
They voted you Man of the Year when?
12 years later.
I'm really surprised, since you were sent up on an habitual criminal rap, that you got out as quickly as you did. You only, what'd you serve, about 3 years?
About just about 3 years exactly. 2 years, 9 months in the joint, and about 90 days in jail. So it's about 3 years to the day. Well,
did you go up in front of a parole board and did they say, all right, Mr. Haggard, why do you think we should let you out?
Absolutely. That's just about what they said, Ralph. And the first time I went up, they didn't say that. They said, well, it looks like you'd enjoy it here. We'll see you next year. Boy, that jarred me. You know, I thought I was going to get out. I thought I was a kid. They were going to treat me like a kid.
Didn't the prison have a band?
Yeah, but I was on a security... I had a security problem because of my escape record, and I couldn't get out after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and all of those type of functions took place after that. And I had what you call a close security on me. There's 5 different classifications, and I was next to the worst. And so that didn't occur until after I'd been there long enough to, like 2 years before I got on the prison band. But the fact that they noticed that I wasn't working, you know, really jarred me to my senses. And so I went down and got me a job and tried to fake it. And that didn't work either. Next year they denied me again, you know. And I'd got into we were wheeling and dealing. We had a loan company, and we was booking ball games and
while you were in prison,
making home brew, and we had this big business going in there, you know.
You made whiskey in prison?
Made beer. 8-9 day beer, you know. It's pretty good, but potatoes and oranges, and, you know. But when I wound up, I got drunk and got arrested on the yard and wound up on isolation, which is adjacent death row. And that's where a lot of the songs have a confusing implication of doing life without parole, is because I came so close to those people that was doing it that I had to write about it. And I spent 7 days there and was able to talk through the plumbing area there to the condemned prisoners, and was able to talk to Carol Chessman, that was probably the most well-known condemned prisoner of all time. You know, spent 12 years on death row and wrote 2 books and nearly talked his way out of it. You know, and in fact, I think he proved his innocence. Actually,
he was his own lawyer, wasn't he?
Yeah. Very intelligent man. Fuzzy Orn could have doubled for him. He looked like Fuzzy.
Merle, are you and Ronald Reagan good friends?
We've crossed paths. I say crossed paths. We've had reason to communicate 3 or 4 times, and every time that that's happened, it's always worked out where he, in some way or another, helped me.
It was Governor Reagan that pardoned you, wasn't it?
Governor Ronald Reagan
when he was governor of California.
Michael Devers, the guy that that is up on perjury charges right now, was one of the men that was instrumental in making sure that my pardon was seen. That was the only manipulation of any kind that happened. There was, I think, a stack of them there, and somebody took mine and put it on top of the stack.
How did you get to Michael Devers?
Well, my brother-in-law was part of the Reagan team in California, and was one of Reagan's personal friends, and charged with a Project Blue Book, which was the flying saucer thing. They had given my brother-in-law the complete, and then represented the United States with Indonesia as an ambassador. So he was well liked in the government, and was a friend of Ronald Reagan's. And without that little bit of help, I probably never would have got a pardon. But at least it was placed in front of his eyes, and then there was 12 men who had to vote on it. So I still considered an honest pardon. You know, it was just Mr. Devers. You know, I wish there was some way I could help him.
I believe that pardon, that complete pardon signed by Ronald Reagan, is in the Country Music Hall of Fame today.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it was an unusual thing for a man to receive a pardon. My age, 33 years old, and usually that doesn't occur until a man's on his deathbed, what I understand. But Ronald Reagan has been nice to me a couple other times. And when I was trying to get the train for the Farm Aid thing, he sent a man from the White House, sent one of his aides to be with me in Washington. They escorted us all over Washington, D.C., you know, and we went to the Amtrak people, and it was quite impressive to have a man from the White House with you to make sure and ensure that you got whatever you needed. And that was what he was there to do. And
but your train to Farm Aid did not work out, did it?
No, because of some simple reasons that we just didn't know about at the time. There's a lot to be said about the railroads of America nowadays. You know, there's, first of all, the big companies such as Southern Pacific and Santa Fe, and all of the major companies relinquished all of their passenger rights to Amtrak, which gave them no insurance. In other words, Santa Fe couldn't put together a train to haul us across country because they weren't insured to do so. The Lloyds of London wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole because there was too many names on it, too many celebrities. I found out after several months of research that a simple call to the circus dispatcher could have gotten me a train. But I really don't know why the man at Santa Fe or someone there didn't tell me, or someone at the in Washington, D.C. could have helped me, I'm sure, but that was all that was necessary.
What do you mean, circus dispatcher?
Well, there is a guy who dispatches and puts together special trains, and his main job is like dispatching, for example, circus trains.
So actually, the Farm Aid train failed because you didn't have the knowledge.
I didn't have the knowledge to put it together in time. We had 30 days to get it going, and to get insurance on and all the things that was necessary. It was just impossible.
Do you remember Johnny Cash coming to San Quentin doing his live album?
Sure do, yeah. No, he didn't do the live album that time. That was I think the first time he ever came there, which was in '58. And what I remember about it being so great was the fact that country music was not the hottest thing in the joint, you know, and it received a lot of catcalls and this and that. As you know, we all went through loving country music in the early days. And this show that occurs once a year is called the New Year's Day show, and there's every type of entertainment allowed, even strippers. When you know that you got one of your biggies coming in, and you're a country music fan, and here's Johnny Cash going to come in, you worry about him. I worried about his success there, worried about the fact whether or not they'd like him. And
you didn't worry about somebody harming him, did you?
No, I worried about him. I worried about him liking him as much as I did, and to tell you the truth, I wasn't that big a Johnny Cash fan of his records. I didn't particularly like I Walk the Line. I liked Folsom Prison Blues, but I didn't like I Walk the Line. And I didn't like Swinging Doors either. But but anyway, I worried about that. And when he came in, him and Gordon Terry and a bunch of people I've come to know later, Luther and all of them, been over across the bay over there roaring the night before, don't you see, New Year's Eve. And so Cash didn't have much voice. I mean, he laughed it completely off. And he was chewing gum, I remember that. And he came in there and he did just the right things. He said just the right things. And I seen that the power of conducting yourself in the right manner. And in a matter of seconds, he won that complete prison. And
with his showmanship.
You bet. Yeah,
So
he was a strong horse.
And you were proud.
You bet.
I suppose we should introduce you to a lady in Merle's life who probably is one of the most important ladies in his life and has been for a long time, and that's Tuffy. Tuffy, who is sitting on his lap. Tell us about Tuffy.
Well, Tuffy has been a faithful lady through all the ups and downs. She's 12 years old, and she only has 4 teeth. We were just talking about the fact that you can buy false teeth for dogs now, and they say it really extends their life potential. And I've considered it. They have a man, I think, in Florida that does it. I've heard about him. And other than that, she's in real good health, and her eyesight's good.
Does she go everywhere with you?
Well, the last couple of years, she had up until a couple of years ago, and her ears began to bother her a lot, traveling at different elevations and everything, and she couldn't get them unstopped. And I could tell she had some problems with it. And I tried leaving her home, and she'd get depressed, and nobody'd see her. She'd hide somewhere in the house, and she's so small you couldn't find her. So I figured it was better for her to be happy and have bad ears than be depressed. So she's back on the road again. She's chief of security out here.
Well, I'm surprised to hear you say that you're not fishing much anymore, because I always thought that was a release for you.
It is, and like I say, I think I'm just burnt out.
You used to fish down Lake Havasu a lot, didn't you?
I fished, I chased them bass for 45 years, and I'm not giving up by any means, but I guess I'm just kind of in a real busy part of my life, trying to get a couple of things done in this lifetime. As you know, is really hard if they're pretty good sized goals. And I didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of it for a while, and I've decided what I want to try to do. And if I accomplish it, I may not have too much fishing time, but if I can get it done, I'll be probably more happy about that than I would a big bass. So
in April of 1987, you turned 50.
Yeah.
That bother you?
Well, it did more so, I think, the 6 months prior. I got a phone call from Johnny Cash. I missed a couple of dates in Oregon. And, hello, Merle. This is Johnny Cash. You all right? I said, yeah, I'm all right, John. He said, you taking dope, Haggard? I said, no, John. I said, if dope was a problem, I'd get some better dope or something. I said, no, that's not it, you know. Hell, me and June just worried. I said, how old are you, Haggard? I said, I'm 49, John. He said, what's wrong? He said, I turned 50 and wound up at Betty Ford Center. He said, that's what's the matter with you. But I did. I had some growing pains there. And it hasn't been that long since you turned 50. You know.
I'm 54. I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's a funny feeling when you realize that the first half is really over.
You ever had a drug problem?
I've had trouble getting the right drugs once in a while. No, I don't think I have.
You ever had an alcohol problem?
No. I was drinking about half a case of beer a day when I went to prison, and when I came out, I never could finish a full beer again, and I never did try to work up to it. And I've drank casually over the years, but I don't think it ever got to be a problem. I got to, when Leon and I divorced, I got into the cocaine for about 3 years, and it nearly killed me. I realized that I was close to death, and I really was. And a lady by the name of Deborah Parrott, who I'm married to now, saved my life. And she got me off of it. Once I got off of it, I never wanted it again. And I hated it. It made a different human being out of me. It made me not care about anybody. Of course, that was what I wanted to do at the time, because I couldn't stand to care about anything. I was hurt. And so it worked for me, but I nearly killed myself. And maybe that was what I was trying to do, too. I don't know. But when I got off of it, got clean of it, you will not find cocaine in my camp.
Is there a song that you sing that really honestly tells how you feel?
I think Footlights would probably describe the last 10 or 15 years better than anything. Nobody wants to do a better show more than I do. I've never went on stage that I didn't give everything I had, because embarrassment is the worst enemy in the world to me. I don't want to be embarrassed, and I don't want to embarrass the people I'm fronting. And you know that feeling. And I think Footlights describes probably more emotional situations in my life than any other song.
What does the song say?
I live the kind of life that most men only dream of. I make my living writing songs and singing them. But I'm 41 years old, and I ain't got no place to go when it's over. Now I'll kick the footlights out again. I can't recite a song. I have to sing.
Well, I understand.
Something like that.
Do your present audiences still identify with songs that were hits 20 years ago? I think Okie was around 68 or 69. Fight Inside of Me followed that.
Absolutely.
And
there's no...
Today I Started Loving You Again.
The response to those songs are tremendous. And they've cooled off somewhat, but not much.
When Okie from Muskogee was a big hit, this country was pulled apart. It was during the time of the Vietnam War. The kids were in the streets protesting the war, but they were also supportive of you. And as I recall, you followed that with Fight Inside of Me, and that sort of turned them off. I wondered if you remember those days and those reactions.
Yeah, I sure do. Okie from Muskogee had a lot of different meanings to it, and it said a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and I think a lot of people felt that they weren't the one the finger was being pointed at. Instead, they were the one that was doing the singing. You know, they were the one that agreed, and even though maybe they might have had needed the finger pointed at it, but they agreed with the fact that Muskogee was a rural American city and with an opinion. And that was basically what the song was meant to say. And I think it went on and said a lot more that I didn't even realize. And but then it threw me into sort of a political position to where I had to say something to explain exactly what I meant. And I thought Fight Inside of Me might do it, and it did.
How about My Favorite Memory?
That was a true period that I spent with Leona on the Lake Shasta. 13 days we spent up there, and we had a great marriage for 13 days. And the few of the days I salvaged out of that in part of my life, and one of the most successful songs.
A few years ago, you did a song. We're back to this growing older thing now. Are the good times really over? And I wondered if, when you did that, if moving on from 40 to 50 was bothering you.
Could have been. You know, I saw something take place in the quality of American goods, hardware. It seemed to take place around 1979. You know, it just seemed like that. You know, right now, if you're an automobile collector, you know, and you want to buy a good Chevy pickup, get you a 79, 78, 77. I got a 77 right now. It seemed like things went to plastic after that. You know, and I'm not to say that plastic may not be a better substance to make automobiles with. In fact, I'm surprised the Cadillac I've got. I tried to tear it up, and I can't tear it up. So, but it seems like things, we took a drop in our quality. America seemed to say, okay, we'll accept less now, about that period. And I'm proud to say that I think in the last year or two, I've seen some upswing in that.
Merle, have you ever gotten over being lonely?
I've worked on self-support, self-reliance layly quite a bit. And I've realized also with turning 50 that there's going to be some things that are going to happen shortly that requires you to be alone. And I'm probably happier and more in control about that problem in my life than I ever have been. And I've got some neat friends around me, and I'm a fortunate person in having a lot of love around me. And I sing about songs that might indicate otherwise. But it's not hard to remember how it was.
This year, Merle Haggard will be 51, and he continues to sing the songs that touch the hearts of millions of Americans. He continues in the role as the poet of the common man.